On this episode of Locked On Lightning, Stamkos playing in his 1,000th game. We got some guys out of the lineup tonight against the Islanders. We'll talk about all that more. But first, let's play that music.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. We're discussing tonight Steven Stamkos' 1,000th career game, which I'm a little irked about. I'll explain about that more later on. But first, we're talking about the Lightning back in action tonight, taking on the New York Islanders. And we got a couple of people out of the lineup playing a little bit shorthanded. Nothing to be worried about. So we got no Cirelli, no Cernak, no Hagel tonight. Cernak is day-to-day, no designation for why he's out of the lineup. So I think it's safe to assume that Cooper's is giving him a rest, which is I don't have a problem with. I mean, these last couple of games, in theory, don't mean anything. You still want the Lightning, though, to go out there and give it their best shot to win these games so they could have some sort of momentum heading into the playoffs against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And so tonight's lines are Stamkos, Point, Cooch, Esamont, Paul, Killorn, Jeannot, Belmar, Perry. And then you kind of have the two forwards on that fourth line with Colton and Maroon. And then the defensive lines are Hedman, Perbix, Sergachev, Radish, Cole, Bogosian. And then you got Fleury, who will kind of play that role as that defenseman / forward. And then, of course, Elliott and net, which I'm not surprised. At the same time, I kind of figured that Cooper would have wanted to get Vasilevsky out there right away. Last night, like I said on last night's episode with Vasilevsky, and I'm saying that because Yellow Snowman wrote a comment about apparently with my accent, it sounds different. To me, at least, it sounds different because of my accent. But Vazzy, I didn't think he played a bad game last night. I just think that, other than that one goal he gave up, I believe it was Tyler Mott's second of the game. Just a goal from the boards, kind of whipped it around. Vasilevsky, you thought he had the space covered, and it just squirted by through him, and really just a bad goal there. But I thought for the most part he played well. A lot of those goals those other goals he gave up, I really thought that really it was just a lot of traffic in front. His guys in front of him weren't helping him out by giving him a clear view and allowing him to see the puck perfect, or at least a good portion of the time. And he was giving up bad bounces on rebounds, but at the same time, it's on your teammates to really go out there and kind of just clear out the zone, which they couldn't do last night. The Rangers did a very good job in that game, controlling the puck and really controlling the space in front of Vasilevsky. And that's why ultimately, alongside with really just boneheaded penalties, I think that's why the Rangers edged out the Lightning. Now, having said that, no problem with Elliott and net tonight. I think that at the end of the day, obviously what you want to do is avoid a situation like we had last year in which Vasilevsky was just completely running on empty the entire playoff run. And, he's been playing well enough to where I think lately, these last 5, I think we could say that he's on the precipice of being back. Or for me personally, I think it's a good sign. Even last night, he gave up 6 goals, but I don't think that tells the whole story. Like I said, I think there was other factors that were involved, and you got Elliott out in the crease tonight, and We're recording this about 10 minutes in to the game. And Lightning are not off to a good start. At the end of the day, obviously these games don't mean anything. The Lightning have clinched the playoff spot in the East. It's all set in stone. They will be playing the Maple Leafs. Having said that, you do want to put out a good effort. Not off to a good start. Being outshot at this point 11-3 in the first. Well, now it's 12-3, excuse me. Lightning are also 0 for 1 on the power play, so just kind of the Tampa special, as maybe some of us might, or at least I would like to call it, and early on late starts for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So really needed to get it together. This is a game that is very winnable, a game that, regardless of the fact that you're missing three key players from your lineup, I still believe that this is a game that you could win. You have the tools there. This Jeannot Esamont Belmar line that they got out there is a little suspect. I don't know how to feel about that. But you know what? It's a lineup full of veterans, at least out there. Obviously Point, Stamkos, and Kucherov. That's going to be your line that you're going to probably heavily rely on, and I would imagine John Cooper is going to put out Stamkos there, give him a ton of ice time tonight, especially it being his 1000th game in the NHL, to give him as many opportunities as possible to be able to succeed tonight. Pretty much, after coming off a game last night in Game 999, where he was just, except for that penalty he took early on, I believe it was for slashing, was really not there at all whatsoever in any capacity for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So hopefully we could get a good performance out of the captain tonight. And yeah, I mean, this is a team where firmly I believe that really they could win. This is a team that they could beat. The Islanders are still fighting for a playoff spot. And, this is the part of the season where you kind of expect it for Lightning to win these games. Last night, Rangers playing a little bit better than Lightning as of late. The Rangers are younger, but still no reason to be outplayed and no reason to be outskated in such a way, the way that the Lightning were outskated by the New York Rangers. So hopefully the Lightning could get it together. Hopefully they could win tonight, have a couple of days off, or a day actually off, a day and a half, I guess, if you want to count somewhat of whatever time they have left tonight after this game. They go up to Ottawa on Saturday, and then they're back home next week against Toronto and Detroit. So hopefully we'll see a better performance and especially a better outcome tonight, and as well as in the game on the weekend. And then we could talk about the Maple Leafs and how important that game might be. I don't view these last couple of games as really anything important. I just want to see good efforts out of this team, and I think everybody could agree with me. So we'll keep an eye on that. Hopefully tomorrow we'll be talking about a Lightning win, and we'll be talking about how they got it together as the game progressed. So we'll talk about all that tomorrow, and we'll talk about Steven Stamkos getting his 1000th game tonight. Well, playing in his 1000th game tonight. The legacy, what does that mean? How is it being received across the league? We'll talk all about that and more. But first, I want to talk about today's sponsor, and that is our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Now, the NBA playoffs are almost here, and now is the perfect time to download the FanDuel Sportsbook app, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, the FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel. So moving on to Steven Stamkos playing in his 1000th career game in the NHL, and just to lay down his stats over 500 career goals, to be exact, 514 career goals, over 1,000 points on his career, 1,052 to be exact. And I mean, what else is there to say? He's the captain of 2 Stanley Cups, back-to-back Stanley Cups, an iconic goal in the first one in which he was just completely all banged up and further injured himself on that play as well against Dallas in the bubble. Scored 60 goals, drafted first overall. I mean, 2 Richard trophies, 2-time All-Star. What is there to say? What else is there? If you think, if you want to ask yourself, what is there left for this man to accomplish at the NHL level? Really not much if you really think about it. Like I said, has won championships, has won scoring titles. His resume speaks for itself. He will be in the Hall of Fame, I would imagine, on the first ballot. I would be curious, we could sit here and say he's a guaranteed first ballot Hall of Famer, but I don't know let's see who's up on the ballot the year that he gets in, who or that he's eligible to be voted in. You never know who might be taken over him, but I would just say, I mean, when you think of the Tampa Bay Lightning, when you think of their history, when you think of everything that this team, this franchise has endured over their 30-year history, the name, I think we could all agree, whether you were a Lightning fan in the beginning from 1992, whether you were a Lightning fan in 2004, you became one in 2004 when they won their first cup, or if you became a fan during COVID when they won in the bubble, or the year after when they beat the Montreal Canadiens, the three-peat, or even last year when you saw them fall short, just short of a three-peat against the Colorado Avalanche. I think the name we could all agree, if there was a Mount Rushmore, or I guess a list of players on the Mount Rushmore of Lightning franchise history, if you had to rank 1 to 5 or 1 to 4 or whatever, I think we could all agree at this point in time, unless we see some catastrophic or incredible uptick from Braden Point or Nikita Kucherov, I would have to say, and I think we could all agree without a shadow of a doubt, that Steven Stamkos is the greatest player that has ever put on a Lightning uniform. And I think that his contributions to this franchise and to the sport of hockey cannot be understated. Having said that, like I said, tonight is his 1,000th game. I get it, he's not at home, but at the same time, unless you're looking other places that are not Lightning outlets, you would have never thought that he was playing his 1,000th game. Now, I understand to a certain degree, it's not that incredible of a feat, I guess, for some people anymore to look at. You get a lot of players these days hitting the 1,000 game mark. But even though it is celebrated, even though we know we do have a ceremony, especially for a very good player who at one point was one of the best players in the league, I think that I wouldn't say it's disrespectful, because I'm not expecting NHL Network or NHL.com to do this whole thing for Steven Stamkos. But I mean, you look on NHL.com right now, like I said, you would have never thought to the outside eye that Steven Stamkos was playing his 1,000th game. The only thing that mentions a Lightning player or anything Lightning related on the front page is Alex Killorn getting fined for slashing the other night, which, whatever. I mean, that's a chippy game. Doesn't really mean anything at the end of the day, but I just find it very strange. And I find it I find it somewhat disrespectful to him, considering, like I said, he has accomplished so much in his career. And I feel like, this is kind of the issue, maybe for some. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments below on our YouTube page. This is kind of what's the issue with the NHL in terms of their promotion of their players. You can't expect other people to take pride or get excited about certain things happening in your league if you don't do the basic things. And that goes back to the people that run their sites and are in charge of content. Trust me, I worked for NHL.com back in the day. Um, it's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. They're more concerned with rinky dinky storylines in the NHL than, promoting something like this, which would have been nice, for him to not only get his appreciation um, on TV, because I'm sure the Islanders broadcast may have probably mentioned something tonight, but it would have been nice, I think, for him at least to get that appreciation uh, on the website. And because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people outside of Tampa Bay and the Islanders fan base that probably don't even realize that tonight is Steven Stamkos' 1000th game. But other than that, a great career. Hopefully, we see many, many, many more games from the captain. And one day we'll see his statue outside Amalie, and one day they'll be hanging up his number in the rafters, and one day we'll be celebrating him getting into the Hockey Hall of Fame. So congratulations on 1,000 games to our captain, Steven Stamkos. And yeah, wish him the best of luck. Many, many more games, and hopefully he could help this team a couple more times in winning a Stanley Cup. So we'll keep an eye on Stamkos's career as it continues to develop, because yes, he's been in the league for quite some time, but by no stretch is he done in on the ice. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll keep an eye on this game as hopefully the Lightning could get it together. So in the meantime, we'll hear from one of our friends over at Indeed. Now, if you're hiring now, you could only imagine. I bet I could only imagine how ridiculous it is out there, how much of a struggle it is to find the right candidates. Well, Indeed is your one-stop shop, your one-stop hiring platform where you could attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you could do it all with Indeed. Now, candidates you invite to apply through an instant match are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in search, according to the U.S. data. So go ahead to Indeed right now. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. So wrapping things up, coming off a loss last night, I not a good look for the Lightning to lose by 3 goals to the Rangers, who, listen, are a very good team, very good hockey team. Their goaltender played very well last night. You would expect a little bit more, regardless of the circumstances with their lineup tonight. You would expect a little bit more energy. I kind of feel like even not coming off a loss, you're down a couple of guys. You want to go out and get those guys who have maybe not played in quite some time, a little bit more oomph in their step, a little bit more, just momentum underneath their feet to get going early on. And as the case is tonight, and as the case normally is with the Tampa Bay Lightning early on in games, they are being severely outplayed at the moment. They are in the first intermission right now. We got ourselves a scoreless game. The Lightning have 3 shots on net. And I know Hagel's out, Cirelli's out, both lower body injuries, which is fine. And Chernak's out. He's resting. That's still unacceptable. 3 shots. 3 shots. I don't want to hear it. I don't care. the New York Islanders, this is the problem with the Tampa Bay Lightning. This is the thing that scares me to death when it comes to the upcoming playoffs, especially against the Toronto Maple Leafs, is that this team has been so inconsistent to where at times, and I don't mean to sound negative, at times I almost feel like a win or a couple of wins in a row, or, like we saw the other night, Lightning were coming into the Ranger game with 3 straight wins. But as you could tell last night, that momentum didn't mean anything. And I feel like any momentum that we feel like this team has, really it's not a thing when it applies to anybody in the blue and white jerseys. And I find that a big issue. I feel like this is maybe an issue or a topic that will be discussed more in the offseason, especially if it's something that we see that results in the Lightning being sent home prematurely in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But yeah, going into these matchups where I think we could all agree, even if you have not watched some of these teams closely, the drop off from the New York Rangers to the New York Islanders is very significant. And my issue is that by default, if you're losing a game 6-3 against the New York Islanders, like we have just established, is a significantly better team, and then you go against the Islanders, who are fighting for a playoff spot, things could change very fast in the next couple of games. Shouldn't there be some sort of more competitiveness in this game, close in terms of that gap? Or I would say, let me reverse that. Little bit of a wide margin of competitiveness, the Lightning being on a higher tier. I don't get it. Even when Elliott's in, I mean, Elliott's played fantastic this season, so it's not goaltending. Clearly, we have a scoreless game going into the first intermission, but still, something's got to give with this team. And it's a number of factors. It's age, it's the way that this team is constructed. We all loved it, we all enjoyed it the last couple of years, but let's face it, Belmar he's showing his age. He's gone through most of the season being non-existent when he has played. Pat Maroon is just, he's getting to that point where, especially like last night, perfect example, he's doing more bad than good out there on the ice. Corey Perry, my firm opinion, I believe that he still has some left in him. I just don't think that he's being used correctly by Cooper. For some reason, to a certain degree, John Cooper refuses to put him on a line or put him with players that will enable him to kind of jumpstart his scoring in some way. Because like I said last night after the game, Corey Perry shouldn't be fighting. Corey, that at this point in time, and if last year was any indication about what he still has left that he could show in his NHL career, he could score. But I firmly believe, it's one thing working hard along the boards, getting to dirty areas. That's one thing, that's fine. But he shouldn't be going out there being the enforcer. That's why we have Pat Maroon. So something's got to give, something's got to change. John Cooper really needs to adjust if he wants this team to go far and get this, and not only go far in the playoffs, but just win games and be competitive early on. I mean, at this point, I sound like a broken record. I'm sure you all probably do too, talking about this as well. So drop your comments below. Let me know what you think about this. I mean, yeah, like I said, this game really doesn't mean anything for Tampa. Their playoff chances are solidified. They will be playing next week. But at the same time, there's still something to play for, and that's just getting yourselves on the right track. So we'll be back tomorrow to hopefully talk about a Lightning win and look towards the weekend against the Ottawa Senators. So in the meantime, that's been it for this episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I'll talk to you next one.